Here's the Asian pear that I showed you in the last video. Next door to that we've got Berhardi. That's a really nice dessert pear. It keeps for quite a while and it's really popular. I think they sell quite a lot of the Berhardi pears. So just taking you along now, this is what we call the old chicken run. This is where our chickens used to roam. We don't keep them anymore. This was going back probably a decade now. We've got paths. When we came here in 2009, this was just a bare field. It's about just slightly under 3 acres altogether. And I started to grow trees because it's such heavy clay, and the neighbours said to me, oh, you won't be able to grow anything on that land, it's just good enough for trees. And that gave me an idea. We already had a couple of silver birches on the property, mainly in the front garden really, and so I collected the seed and I went on the journey of growing trees because I could see that the prices were so expensive. There's no way that I could afford to buy all the trees that I would have needed to make a woodland, which is what I decided was probably the best way to use this land. And so I started gradually, bit by bit, through all the different areas. I started to plant up the young seedling trees that I've grown. I started with a silver birch, and then I took some cuttings from some white willow trees and started to grow those as well. They rooted really easily. I don't know if everybody knows, but willow is one of the easiest trees to propagate by cutting. So then I added some bought trees, which were mainly young trees of about a year old, and they were alder, and also I did plant a lot of ash trees in the beginning, but then ash dieback kicked in and it was obvious that it was going to be a big problem, so I took quite a lot of the trees out because I didn't want it to become a future issue. I have kept a couple of the trees, the ash trees, which seem to show signs of resistance to ash dieback. So as they grow older, I'm keeping a careful eye on them. As you can see, as I walk around, you'll notice that a lot of the trees have been cut down to about 3 foot high. We do this, it's not really coppicing, because coppicing is done when you cut a tree right down to the base. This isn't either pollarding, because pollarding is where you cut the tree off at about 6 or 7 foot high. So this is more a little bit of an in-betweeny sort of style. So I suppose it's really poppicing or collarding, whichever you prefer to say. The reason that I do this is so that the trees don't get too massively big and uncontrollable. Well, looks like a neighbour's got a fire going over there. Luckily the wind's blowing away from us, so that's not too much of an issue. So these trees will start to sprout in a week or two. In fact, here's a willow tree that I poppiced, and it's starting to grow now. Look, see all the shoots that are coming out. Behind it we have an alder, and that's the tree that I coppiced, so I cut that further down to the ground. I did that a couple of years ago, and that's growing up and is very healthy. Also coppice in a tree will help it to live longer because it gets into the habit of rejuvenating itself. And obviously something that might live maybe 100 years might then be able to go on to live for 300 years or even longer. I spend a lot of time in the woodland. It's my favourite place really. Everything's so peaceful and the birds singing, and it's just my oasis. I've actually come down here this morning. This woodland's at the back of our house, so it's really convenient for me just to pop out whenever I like really, but the only problem is often I'll come out for 5 minutes and then 2 hours later I go in and have my breakfast and find that it's 11 o'clock. It's so addictive. I've come out this morning to check on some of my cherry trees. I've been, over the last few years, I've been grafting cherry trees to create more basically. This here is a Pink Perfection tree which has been grafted onto a wild cherry tree which we've got lots of on the property. When we moved here there were loads of, probably 5 or 6 big cherry trees in the front garden in a bit of a copse really, which we wanted to clear away because it was in the wrong place. So I took what was really suckers from the roots, I dug them up and I replanted them in the woods. For some reason wild cherry is a tree that you shouldn't plant too near your house because the roots run for quite a long way, and then every now and again a new shoot will just pop up from the root. But this was an advantage for me because it meant that I could create new trees from basically from nothing. So here's another tree. I'll just have a look for the tag on this one. That one's called Cherry Autumnalis. It has really nice pink blossom, and if you look closely down here, that's where I grafted. Basically grafting is when you cut part of the stem off, and there's the other graft on the other stem. Focus. You cut part of the stem off of the existing tree. I usually do this when I can find a stem or a branch that's about no more than 1 centimetre in diameter, and then you take what is going to be your scion, and that is the twig or branch of the variety that you want to create and make the new tree into. You usually do this before bud break, which is obviously in the winter. The ideal time for cherry trees, I've found through experience, is February, March time, but definitely no later than when the buds start to form on the tree ready for the leaves to open, because basically it's too late.